Now, this is shocking. The scale of the country's shoplifting epidemic has been laid bare. More than 200,000 shoplifting cases went unsolved in just 12 months. The Liberal Democrats, who have studied the statistics for England and Wales, accuse the government of totally failing to tackle a growing crime epidemic. They're not wrong, are they? I'm joined by former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley. Peter, great to speak to you. What on earth is going on here? 200,000 cases unsolved.
And I'm entirely confident in saying that there are many, many other cases that do not feature as part of these statistics, because shopkeepers that I talk to have quite frankly given up on getting any kind of police response. So they manifestly do not report the cases because they see it as a complete and utter waste of time.
Yes, well, I'm not surprised. But what impact does this have on retail staff and business owners? Because we often talk about shoplifting as though it's a victimless crime or it's a low-level crime. But it must have a huge impact, not least when it comes to being, well, fear. Also, the bottom line, of course, it costs these businesses huge amounts of money. We've seen billions being lost to shoplifting, but also the fear factor. It's probably quite scary knowing that people are going to come in every day trying to nick things.
You've highlighted one of the really important aspects that runs parallel with this story, and that is assaults on retail staff and security staff. Over 800 retail staff, yes, 800, are assaulted every single day. And of course, that is utterly scandalous on many, many levels. And unfortunately, some major retailers instruct their staff now not to intervene with shoplifting because the risk of assault is so high. And therefore, some staff follow these non-intervention policies, security staff. So when you put all of these factors together, essentially what we have is a shoplifter's charter. And we see thieves entering stores repeatedly and just helping themselves with impunity, with nobody wanting to challenge and, quite frankly, no kind of police response if the retailers pick up the phone and dial 999.
Peter, have the people who are perpetrating this crime changed? Are we looking at more organised gangs or are we looking at more opportunists?
There is some complexity to the demographic that commit all this crime. Some people claim to be doing it out of poverty because they can't afford various things. You might see young mothers, for example, saying that they're stealing baby milk because they can't afford it. There are undoubtedly organised crime gangs who steal to order and do this for a living. And we see them quite often on CCTV or footage that's filmed by public-spirited people on their phones, where these thieves just enter stores and help themselves. The major retailers this year, Tesco, Co-op and others, have implored the government to do something. In other words, to stick their boot up the rear end of the police services of this country, and some have listened. But when we hear figures trailed that charges have increased to and are 3 times what they used to be, well, that really is no comfort whatsoever, because the previous figure was so lamentably low and remains astonishingly way beneath what it should be.
And Peter, what should the penalty be for shoplifting?
It's all about deterrence. There should be deterrence. If the police patrolled the streets and formed some kind of visible deterrent, that would help. If courts handed out suitable punishments instead of so often giving non-custodial sentences, community orders and the like, which are frequently ignored and tend often to be just a waste of time. And unfortunately, all of this contributes to the far bigger issue, and that is that our police are becoming increasingly irrelevant with regards to the crimes that affect the moderate mainstream of Britain. And that, of course, is deeply worrying.
Yes, because if you're making hundreds of pounds a day, which I believe some shoplifters can and are, a bit of community service isn't necessarily going to put you off when you're making such a profit, is it?
Absolutely, and this comes on the back of instructions being handed down to the courts, in fact legislation being pushed through Parliament no less, that will lead to less people receiving a sentence of 12 months or shorter. There has to be deterrence. If the possibility of running into that police officer as you legged it out of the store with your stolen goods was there, that would help. If all retail staff, security staff, had positive intervention policies whereby they detained people, they were suitably trained in the law and they were suitably robust in their attitudes, that would help. If shops were willing to assist the police in prosecutions, if we had more police officers, of course that would help. But quite frankly, at the moment, these kind of dreadful statistics just go to show that we are living in an increasingly lawless country, and we all suffer as a result of that.
And Peter, do you think we've got a broader cultural, societal issue that often youngsters feel they're going to get away with crime or they don't care for authority?
Yes, I think that is part of the problem. And I also fear that we have kind of a millennial generation now who have become so used to becoming victims of crime themselves or knowing people that are victims of crime amongst their peer groups and their friends, that there's almost an acceptance amongst many, many people in this country that crime is just something that happens, something you will inevitably become a victim of. And of course, crime irritates an old school copper like me, and it used to irritate many of my colleagues. And until we get back to having a mindset that crime is unacceptable, crime will not be tolerated, criminals will be prosecuted and suitably punished, then this matter is only going to get worse.
Well, I'm not sure anyone can disagree with that. Thank you very much, Peter Bexley, former Scotland Yard detective. Thank you for your time. Strong stuff. It is absolutely incredible that 200,000 shoplifting cases went unsolved in just 12 months. And as Peter says, those are just the ones that have been found. There may be hundreds of thousands more cases that haven't even been reported. Let me know if you've been impacted or your area has been impacted. gbviews@gbnews.com.